back, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast, the space where bold business conversations meet practical strategies for the real world growth. I'm your host, Sana, and today in this episode, we are going to dive into something very, very interesting, yet a topic that keeps leaders up at night: how to solve the core challenges in the business while actually growing the business in the process. And joining me is David Aferiat. He's a seasoned entrepreneur, growth strategist, and certified Bloom growth coach. Now, let me share a bit about David with all of you. He is known for helping business owners and executive teams navigate inflection points, whether they are restructuring, scaling, or simply breaking through a plateau, using a proven business operating system that transforms chaos into clarity. And with decades of experience guiding mid market companies and startups, he's here on BizBlend to unpack what's really standing in the way of sustainable growth and how leaders can chart a clear path forward. So, as an entrepreneur or a founder, if you have ever felt like you're working harder, but maybe the but not able to move the needle fast enough, this is the conversation you don't want to miss. So, with that, David, welcome to the show, and I'm really honored to have you here with us.
Oh, son, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me and the privilege of being in front of your audience like this.
Thank you, thank you. So, David, let's let's answer the question. What's really keeping business owners and executives up at night today in this modern day and age?
Well, how do I get to my answer? I get to my answer because I'm always in contact with uh, various circles of communities to which I belong. And one of them is the Entrepreneur Organization, which is called EO for short. It's a global organization of business owners um, with chapters in Hyderabad to Paris to Dallas to Atlanta. And and so in Atlanta, where I am based, there's about 160 of these CEOs to which I'm always um, interacting with. In addition, the Bloom Growth coach community to which I belong and to which the
Mhm.
framework that I apply, that's peer reviewed. We're always meeting every quarter, every 3 months to sharpen the tools and use each other's clients' as um, cases from which to apply the tools in better ways. And so throughout all of those interactions, I come across a lot of businesses that and scenarios that owners are going through. And from my own experience as well, for 20 years, growing a fintech software company, um, there are basically three things that I hear and that resonate with what kept me up at night. One of them is always people. It's
Yep.
people driven, and it's no wonder that if you are able to grow your people, you grow your business. If you have a people problem, you have a business problem in a serious way. Um, and a lot of where I find the most value, the trigger for having a conversation when, as a growth coach, I'm talking to others, other business owners, is usually driven around a recent hire or a recent exit from someone in the leadership team of the company, where most
Okay.
of the answers on what to do next and leading the company through growth, happen. Um, and then the others are really financial driven. What keeps up, myself is just am I covering all the expenses? Am I covering this payroll? Am I covering every vendor subscription that I have? Am I covering um, what I need to pay myself? And when was the last time I had a when was the last time I gave myself a raise? Am I how much am I giving to this machine, this extra child, if you will, from my own pocket?
Mm. Oh, yeah. I mean, it is definitely, I shouldn't say difficult. It's a challenging terrain. full of ups and downs, uncertainties, yet there's definitely a thrill in there, David, I must say. And from your experience, I can definitely connect with the ones you mentioned, especially with people, because if people are not there, then the business is not there. It is not there. So, um, and many leaders I talk to, it's kind of, I imagine that there's an assumption that they are not running the business is running them. They are victim of circumstances rather than their own systems or decisions. But uh, I think I believe your point flips that assumption and invites a different kind of accountability into this.
Yeah. Regardless of the framework, it good frameworks do drive accountability. Good, you know, we were talking before. Your first question is about, well, what keeps business owners up at night? And we listed a couple, right? The real question is the inverse of that. Like, what should you be focused on during the day? And or what is it that from the business you want to see manifested, you know? And I don't think there's enough thought towards that, but I'm always pretty focused on what I've wanted from, my businesses, and I may not always, you know, be getting all of it, but from these 3 areas, but they are top of mind about if I'm to be focused on working on the business instead of an employee working in it, then I'm focused on how am I growing? What's the profitability of that growth? Am I profitable as I grow? Which is a hard thing to do, right? Businesses that are growing are often consuming cash. And as long as you're in a particular, as long as you know where you are, that's what's beneficial, especially sleeping at night. Um, so growth, profit, and freedom. That's always what I'm asking and listening for, from other business owners is, what is this business giving back to you in terms of growth, profit, and freedom, right? And growth is not just the business growth, but is it giving back to you? Are you learning? Are you satisfied on a much, more than just monetarily? Are you, is this keeping you, empowered and passionate, engaged in life? And is it doing with no with little to no negative impact on your health and your wellness, right? Or is it just consuming your health and, I see truthfully, I mean, I see so many colleagues that are on the edge of, pre-diabetic kind of conditions in their life that only after they're confronted by medical, by the tests do they suddenly slam into a different mode. And who wants that? So in some ways, that's a constriction of your freedom because y- you've done it and you've lived a life a certain way until you can't. And now, whereas if you from the beginning kind of had a plan, it doesn't matter how it happens. If you get to health, you get to health. But that's a concept of freedom. What I mean, how does your schedule, does your routine liberate you, or does it hold you down? And again, I was at a state for growing my fintech company where across those 20 years, I experienced everything. There were moments where the company took a lot out of my health, out of me, but I would say for the most part, I made sure that I either had kind of signals where I realized if I wasn't working out at a certain cadence or a certain frequency during the week, I said, "Whoa, it's taking too much from me. I need to come back to me." And substitute, health well, not substitute, but it's a whole package. We have to bring our whole selves. When I meet with leadership team members, it's the whole self that I'm meeting with. It's not you come in and you're just an aesthetic, you're in charge of you're the CFO and nothing else about your life matters. It's no, you come in with your family, you come in with your health, and you come in with, frankly, story that you're telling yourself that we have to process or make, because the stories that everyone tells themselves are so often not rooted in fact, but they're narratives running in people's heads. And when you meet as a leadership team, you have to work through like, okay, what, part of what my approach is in creating the space for good decisions to be made that are held accountable and that are part of a overall plan is let's talk through whatever we have, the narratives in our head, the stories we're telling ourselves. And one of the best ways to do that is focus on 3 questions. Where are we? Where are we going? And what's my role in this? Okay,
Mm,
you can answer those 3 questions. You are fit to do the work for today that needs to be done.
mm, mm. Yeah, definitely. They are very, very three important questions, and I really appreciate the fact that you not only are focusing on the business part of it. I mean, the people, the processes, the systems, and everything, but there is definitely the most important aspect of any business, the person who is running it. You know how holistically they are um, set on that path uh, before even we come to the business aspect of it. And really, these three questions, they are kind of very reflective, and they really help in doing a lot of self introspection. That where are we, or where am I? Um, what is my role in here? So that's really very essential. It's kind of a course correction. It really helps you in course correcting.
It's part of what every leader, whether you are the leader of the company, of your department, of your team, anywhere, you do others around you a service by making it easier for them to follow your lead when you can baseline things for them across those 3 questions. And, I first got the inklings of this now are well articulated kind of set of questions when I was raising my children, you know, and frankly, when you have kids and they're young and enough that they're dependent on your schedule, very
Mhm.
different than when they become in America, at 16 and they learn how to drive, and they can leave whenever they want, then suddenly you're dependent on their schedule. Like, "Hey, can we make time to have dinner tonight?" Or, "Can we make time to" so it flips, but right up until they learn how to drive, in America, they are dependent on your schedule. And how many times, when I was raising, our girls did I was like, "Girls, get in the car. We gotta go, we gotta go do something. You gotta come with me. I can't leave you here alone. We're in the car." I wouldn't tell them. And yet sometimes they complained. Eventually they just kind of ignored me, but it was very and then I would wonder, like, "Why are you guys upset?" Because I had the plan. I was the man with the plan. I had the plan in my head. And it wasn't until I kinda slowed down and realized what I was doing to them, like, "Hey, I just took you out of your routine. You were playing with something or what have you, and shoo, you're in the car and suddenly we're going someplace." It's, the only reason they wouldn't call it kidnapping is like, "Okay, you're my dad. I know you, so, okay." But no plan, no idea, no explanation. So the moment I started, like, explaining, "Girls, this is what we're doing." And I had to build that into the time to say, I'm not just dashing out the door and grabbing them. I'm like, okay, I got to get up. I got to go. I got to explain. But girls, come along. This is the plan. When we do this chore that I've got to do, maybe we'll stop and we'll get a smoothie for you. And then, or maybe we'll go do something that you want to do. And they're like, hooray. And now they're in the car laughing and having a good time. And the conversation, the whole thing, the whole energy around what we were doing got better. It's no different than when you're doing this with a team.
That's
Where are we? Where are we going? And what's your role in this? That's almost the same things that came through when I was, grabbing kids and throwing them in the car.
exactly, exactly. Like I cannot, I couldn't agree more with you because there's so many parallels that we can draw between parenting and leadership. I mean, time to time, through so many conversations, I have myself realized it a lot. Although I haven't yet had the opportunity to, embrace that, but I can really, really sense that there's so many parallels in there. Oh,
Ultimately, we're
uh,
all leaders. We're leaders we are architects of our own, daily routines, and we are the masters of our own, habits and curated patterns. that we hopefully have in place for our own betterment. And it's no different than when you get into what kind of habits and routines do you curate in your business. And
Yeah.
one prime example of that is, what is everyone, if you took your leadership team and you just asked an assessment question, meaning one being is a, around meetings, for instance, on a 1 to 10 scale, one being this just takes life out of everything and it sucks, versus 10 like, wow, I feel empowered and this is the best use of my time and it's helped. This meeting gets rid of three others and it's just, I walk away like feeling I'm wearing a cape ready to go fly. Okay, great. Ask your, team about how would they assess your current meetings. And it can be it can be frightening and dismal, some of the answers that, that not only do I get, but that I've been responsible for, in my past, where
Yeah.
the, agenda, foo, out the door, and uh, get on the couch sessions, yeah, just ridiculous. And so, a well structured meeting, a good curated routine, and the habits that form around a high impact prepared meeting that starts on time, that ends on time, that acknowledges what needs to be done, that clears what needs to be resolved so those things can be done, and then has eyes on what the quarterly priority or the big project we're all working on acknowledged and on track or off track. Those are that routine can unlock happiness, purpose, and feed people for an entire week until they need to, you know, do it again.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I totally believe, especially when it comes to meetings, that before even you plan or set up the meeting and communicate that, at least you should have the basic, talking points or the outlines that, okay, these are my main agendas to discuss in the meeting. This shouldn't go more than 30 minutes or max to max an hour. And I think that particular groundwork has to be done before the meeting. And then, the one part that you mentioned, that how this meeting was useful for you, kind of a survey done with the joinees and everyone. It really gives you so many different perspectives, sometimes the ones which you don't even wouldn't even acknowledge or accept, that, oh my goodness, that's what, they think about it. Oh my goodness, that's surprising and that's interesting. So yeah, it can be really humbling. Uh-huh.
No, I'm seizing on the last thing you just said, actually, because it was probably the last incremental improvement that I initiated in my meetings, and they are perhaps the seed that the source of how they, you know, get better. And it's that question at the end of the meeting, everyone rates the meeting, and everyone has a response to, this is a great meeting, guys. What could we do that's even better
Mm,
for next week's meeting? And then you just get
mm.
you get people's opinions and, my gosh, usually I get, if there's 4 people, I usually get 1 great idea, but you're right, everyone's not idea down. You're like, "Yeah, we could do that. We could do that for sure," We could and it's usually related to being prepared, a little bit more preparation. 9 times out of 10, it's usually, "Let's start on time." I'm like, "Okay, you're right. Let's start on time. We could do that."
Yeah. And David, you have navigated, points like restructuring and financial pressure in your own career. Right now, you know, I believe right from the pandemic or since the pandemic, almost every year in the beginning, we are seeing layoffs. Um, Probably the last this year and the last year, driven mostly by AI. And once again, on paper, it can look like something like restructuring or streamlining and stuff like that. But then we are definitely seeing some uncertain times here. So, in your journey, what was one of the toughest challenges you faced personally as a leader, and how did you work through it?
Well, I think I can probably maybe try to provide 2 examples because your question kinda covered a lot, and it there's the aspect of AI and its impact and what I see in since I've started my growth coach practice. But I think the example I'll start off with is what problems and how did I resolve them that were evident in, um, at my FinTech software company that I grew for 20 years. Um,
Mhm.
I would say this, there was a we as I just mentioned before, sometimes our meetings were not they would not be assessed and rated at 10. They felt like around a 4, or sometimes a 3, 5 if we were lucky. Um, and most people are that's all they know. So they've never had a meeting that was like a 9 or a 10. And so 5 for them might feel like, okay, not that we were even rating back then, but a 5 is like, okay, this is what it is. We had to, I got to get that done. And now, you know, but I found that I found that people were, when we were hiring, and we were never that large of a firm, mainly software driven. We hit our height around 26 employees, but we understood it became more and more critical about who we brought onto the team, and we had various filters, but they still weren't. When we onboarded them, I felt like we weren't getting the most out of them until I came across some training. As a lifelong learner, I'm always looking at models and such, and thanks to my journey with the Entrepreneurs Organization and EO, I'm always exposed to new ideas and frameworks, and one of them came from a group called the Arbinger Group, Arbingeer, and
Okay.
their one of their central tenets is one of my core values now, and that's the outward mindset, which in general evokes in me this idea of how can one be of service and thinking outwardly. Um, and it comes into play in an organization when if you're in sales, how can you be of service to those within the company that you're dependent on and that you also serve. So like marketing, what inputs can I give back to marketing that would help me in the long run, that help them do their job? Even more critical from marketing to sales. How can marketing serve sales better? Instead of what traditionally happens where you have marketing and sales kind of combating each other for the affection of the CEO. And sometimes this
Mhm.
also plays out between HR and legal. You know,
Yep. Yep.
HR saying, stop telling me what to do, legal. I need to be able to do this. Whereas legal could say, you know what, this is how I serve you to make you better at your job, like, et cetera. When I took this concept to when you have a core value for mine, and when we talk about it within a company, the first thing to say is that it's not about what's on your website. That is just marketing fluff, and anything on there should be just ignored, or if it's for some other audience, but it's not for internal use because it's how often can anybody, say, what are your core values in the company? What does that website say? No one's going to know. But if you come to what I mean when I talk about core values is what are the ways that you would use a certain set of values that represent behaviors that you want to see in on a team, in employees, that you would then make decisions around hiring, promoting, or in the case where you just in the absence of it, you would fire people. And this
Mm.
outward mindset was a critical value that I brought into how we hired and how we onboarded. So when we would hire, I remember I did this for a couple of employees, and I could see team members really, and as I could see how they performed even 3 months, 6 months, a year after in the company were very different than the ones who didn't have that benefit of how we framed this first impression and onboarding into the company. And the outward mindset was always, kinda like, give me examples about how how you serve others within within an organization, and how you go about from not just creating a product and tossing it over the cubicle, but what kind of questions do you ask? How often do you meet? And do you show up for, what's your feedback process? How do you collect it? Um, those were all very important kind of filtering questions that when we arrived at somebody who really impressed us on this value and showed behaviors around it, turned out to be just a great fit and very productive, person in the organization.
Mm, I think that really kind of helps in kind of a revision. You know, not only just what is there on paper or on the website, but actually looking back at what have you done and how exactly are you maybe executing those principles or frameworks in the work that you're doing.
Yeah. And then maybe the way this segues into answering the second part of your question related to the impact of AI in organizations. I mean, let's create the baseline here. Um, I see more and more organizations, and I expect to see a lot more, but I see even more that are raising money. So pitch decks of companies where they put out their team and the team structure, but even in forward, really forward, on the edge, forward thinking, clients and organizations, I am seeing AI as filling the boxes on the org chart. In the org chart, in a box, this is the AI that we have trained on the company's knowledge base and performing this particular function and either reporting up to a human or in some cases, there is a human that is tasked with assembling inputs and feeding information to get answers from an AI that then serves a higher or a higher level. Um, Point is, I'm seeing them, and then if everyone or anyone has an executive assistant, they often come with their own kind of AI tools. But if you are able to provide a trained um, AI
Mm-hmm.
agent
Mm-hmm.
and pair it with an executive assistant or a virtual assistant, then you're further uh, leveraging you know what they can do. And so what people say that, my gosh, AI is going to get rid of all these jobs and get rid of all these people, and we seeing all these. In some ways, that's we see that with cuts and so forth. But I don't know if AI replaces certainly like middle management. It makes what managers are there, it frees them up to do so much more. Where, listen, humans should not be doing what AI can do well, and AI should not be doing what humans can do real well. And for middle managers or department heads and so forth that need to, and that we're spending so much time either training, how to do certain tasks, and now feel like the AI is enabling the people to do key tasks and responsibilities. Now, what a manager can be spending time on is really kind of coaching and mentoring the person, and not so much be all task
Exactly.
dependent or focus so much on the tasks at hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you really pointed out a very important aspect, especially with the middle management. I mean, the team leads, the area managers, and roles like that. Where more from the repetitive, the point of view of doing the repetitive tasks, the scheduling, the assigning, the management part, it will kind of shift towards more creative contributions, like
Like, I give you this conversation just desperately as an example. I felt like I didn't offer it, at first here, but um, in I had a company that imports organic champagne from France to the U.S. And in this, on my org chart, there's a marketing manager who does a lot of social media engagement as well as the email campaigns and the rest. But on the team is Denise, and Denise is the trained GBT for the import company, and it has in its knowledge base that we all curate and keep updated are price lists for the champagnes, tasting sheets for the champagnes, written
Wow.
um, written writing samples of both my voice and the voices of others that I admire for their clarity and for their descriptive capabilities. And
Mhm.
it has the growth plan for the company. It has everything that could answer the question like, where are we going, and what's my role in this, right? Is
Wow.
part of the knowledge, database, the knowledge base of this AI that we call Denise. And so it's very effective when we're in meetings and to say, you know, Angela, who's in charge of our marketing, Angela, you know, you're freed up from having to do so much of this copy and the writing that we need for these email campaigns and for the
Yeah.
social media posts. You know, that frees you up to do. And frankly, if we have other tools that say this is the best time to schedule, and this is the scheduling apparatus to do it. She's freed up to do more creative graphic design, or even that's being poached a little bit, but it still says curate this, edit it, have the AI do the first wave of it, but then make it better, right? Because you still have this inventive ness, and she's highly creative. She's just made more effective because Denise is writing the copy. It's
Mhm.
approved by Angela, and um, it works. It really really works.
That was really, really awesome, David. Really, really awesome. And it is such a real example of how it can be leveraged in the most effective ways. Um, so as you mentioned
Yeah,
about,
I'll give you another example if you want it.
yeah, go ahead, David.
Um, and this was just this morning. I was talking to another business owner, and fascinated by her description of her company. But it is her description is all about she creates a service that is meant to represent a startup or a or a small company's first general counsel, um, and it's in the form of uh, a highly trained AI that deals with legal issues. And when a business is
Mhm.
growing, it has everything related to like, oh my gosh, I need an employee handbook, or oh my gosh, I need to write an offer letter, or oh my gosh, I need to write, I need to set what the policies and procedures are. And oh my gosh, I need some kind of performance improvement plan, PIP, that needs to be implemented and when and so forth. So all those questions get asked, and you can literally put this entity as your, and this her service, her company has them trained for different industries, has them trained for obviously different states, has them trained for everything that you would want to ask. Um, but before you had to hire your first, general counsel to, and this is meant to be reviewed perhaps, but it's I find it fascinating. And so that's another like whole division led up by what would appear on your org chart as however you wanted to name it, Judd Brandeis or what have you, Judge Dredd.
Yes, it's interesting. Ah,
Judge Judy.
oh, Judy. Okay. Before we wrap up, David, looking back over your journey, I mean, from trade ideas to Avid Group and then Avid Wines, um, what's I know it's a bit hard question to answer, but what's the single biggest lesson you wish you'd learned sooner as an entrepreneur and coach?
What's the lesson I wished I learned sooner? Um, that's a great question. Um,
Uh-huh. Like
I don't
some
really live with a lot of regret. I don't really live with a lot of regrets. Um,
good thing.
so what I wish I could have done sooner. Um, I mean, in some ways, it's usually around transitions. I wish that transitions happened, faster. Um, Transitions from one particular phase, uh, where I transitioned from my software company to this growth coach practice that could have happened faster. But that's relative, really. I mean, and it's too armchair, to to really ponder too much about it because we are where we are, and even even as I see in leadership teams, it's like there's no point in let's just try to say we did this week and we moved the ball forward. We didn't move it up. There's a lot you can drain a lot of joy by comparison where you are versus where you think you should be. And if so, then let's have that story that we're telling ourselves said out loud so we can process it, as a group if we need to. But, there is, I say fast today, but I think, in a week I might say, no, it was everything needed to happen as it happened, in the timing that it happened. To do so any faster might have, it's just not worth talk. It's just not for me. I just don't dwell on it. Um, when I transitioned, this whole talk I give about, your identity. Like if I grew a company for 20 years, that's a fairly significant hat to like take off and say, that's it. And the history behind that is the software company, I turned over the day-to-day operations to the leadership team in that company and the partner that was remaining because I just didn't want to continue on the same path they were headed. And
Mhm.
how I moved to being a growth coach did not happen overnight. So it took time. It took a lot of self reflection, and I became a lot more empowered when I said to myself, "I'm better served if I can anchor my identity not in the roles that I've been playing in this one for 20 years as a co-founder and managing partner. Those are too brittle, it turns out, right? I'm better served if I anchor my identity in what are the values that I live by, not even what I want to live by. Just look at my behavior and say, my, my actions exhibit a certain set of values. And I've already mentioned a couple of them, like the outward mindset is one, lifelong learning is another, showing up avid is a third, and avid is in, the name in two of my companies here, the avid vines and the avid group, because it's an important way of how I show up, being fully present and enthusiastic and really, um, with with in a mindset of abundance versus scarcity. And that that's that allowed me to kind of get to what I wanted to do next, which was take all this amazing experience from 20 years of growing the fintech company to and into the leadership rooms where owners and leadership teams are currently struggling through through the opportunities and obstacles that are ahead of them as they try to scale and grow. And so we've already talked today about, several aspects about how I bring this my framework to bear. We've talked about meetings, for instance. We've talked about relationships, about how we show up. And we've talked about core values. And there's like five more that are all part of the pillars of business that, I bring these tools and experiences to bear when I meet with and when I'm privileged to join a company for their journey towards this growth.
Uh, and thank you so much, David, for sharing this because I think many listeners they will see themselves in that because unlearning can be just as transformational as learning something new. So, uh, thank you. I mean, this was really, really inspiring.
My pleasure, Sana. Thank you so much for having me.
And also, David, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, what will be the best way?
Yes, thank you. Listeners that would like to learn more about the how I'm a growth coach and how I help the journey towards scaling and growing, can find me at avid.coach. So just avid, AVID dot COACH, avid.coach. And for those who want to learn more about the wonders of Premier Cru champagne from France and available in the US, um, they can come to avidvines, VINES.com, and also available just on probably a great starting point as any is LinkedIn and with my name, David Aferiat.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. And David, thank you so much for this candid conversation, for bringing the human side of entrepreneurship and business. And really, it's really inspiring and humbling to hear how your own experiences as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a parent, have shaped the way you now help other leaders find clarity and resilience. So thank you.
I'm honored to be here, Sana. Thank you for the opportunity.
So, to all the listeners, if you want to learn more about David's work, whether it's leadership, coaching, scaling a business, or even celebrating wins, just refer to the show notes along with this episode. Until then, I'm Sana, and this has been another episode of BizBlend. Something that I would like to share before I wrap up: your toughest challenges can become the source of your greatest breakthroughs. Until then, see you next time. Thank you.